Hello, friends, and welcome to a Hasty Podcast. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm your tweeter, Weston Hasty, and good morning, friends. It is time for yet another round of Hasty Podcast. Why not? Twitter is in the news. We're going to be talking about Twitter today, basically to the exclusion of everything else. This podcast is about to take a sharp left turn into the realm of news and information in a way that I wasn't expecting the podcast to do it, but bear with me if you're a listener of the podcast from before. I'm going to be trying to do some different stuff on the podcast than I initially thought I would be, so prepare yourselves for a sharp left turn. I hope you're here for the ride. Come with me on this journey. If you're new to the podcast, welcome to a Hasty Podcast. I'm Weston, and we're going to be discussing Twitter today. Welcome. I have a show. It's this show. It's available on YouTube, and you're watching this or listening to this wherever you are. But in case you didn't know, if you're listening to this on an audio platform, I'm available on YouTube for a video version of this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can listen to it from basically probably your favorite listening platform, whether it's Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, etc. Look for a Hasty Podcast on your favorite platform, and you may just find me. Welcome to the show. This is going to be a shorter show, so I'm going to get on with it just a little bit. Twitter is in the news, and I'm a Twitter user, right? I'm a Twitter user. I've been tweeting. I've had the tweets for a long time. Actually, I can probably look it up. I should have had my Twitter open for this specific reason. Let me look it up, because you can do that. You can, isn't it like, joined May 2012 is when I joined Twitter. I was familiar with Twitter existing for longer than that, but I didn't get a Twitter until May 2012, which actually seems really late now that I think about it. That is very late. That makes sense. I was a big Facebook user back in the mid 2000s. The late 2000 knots. Before you get to the 2000 teens or whatever, the 2000 knots, 2008, 2009, not really 9, 2009, 2010, 2011, I guess I was a big Facebook user. And then by the time 2012 came around, I started not using Facebook. I moved on to Twitter, which was a very different place than it is today, I think. But in many ways, was not all that different from today. I think the culture and the sort of interaction on Twitter has changed a lot. I think maybe on some level, some algorithmical changes have occurred on Twitter and that kind of thing. But functionally speaking, Twitter has remained more or less the same for years. The basic premise: you put a tweet out into the universe as a short-form text message. It used to be 140 characters or less. Now it's 280 characters or less. I do remember that being a big hubbub, a big scandal, a big to-do, where people were concerned that 280 characters was too much. 280 characters was going to strip away what made Twitter unique from other platforms, the fact that you had to be brief. The brevity of Twitter was a huge selling point, I think, for a lot of people, and something that a lot of people didn't want to let go of. Other people totally welcomed the change, had more to say, and couldn't quite fit it in 140 characters. I was on the fence. I leaned more towards the side of don't increase the length, because I was afraid that in the years to come, that length would continue to grow beyond even the 280 that it got changed to. It's like, oh yeah, it's 280 this year. In a couple years, it'll be 360, and then after that it'll be 500, and then before you know it, you have Facebook 2.0 on Twitter, and that is not what I wanted to see on Twitter. There's something about the simplicity of Twitter and the brevity of Twitter that I find the most attractive, something that I like on Twitter over that of something like a Facebook, where you don't dwell on something, you don't have these huge rants that you have to read through from people that you follow. Like, if you've been on Facebook, you know the typical Facebook rant when someone just freaking loses their mind and writes an entire, novel on a topic, and you're like, I'm not reading this. This was supposed to be a status update. What is this? I like the fact that was just not possible on Twitter. Eventually, threads became easier to do. Making threads on Twitter, so that's kind of nice, so that if you do have a longer topic to cover, you can create your own thread, and the entire thread doesn't necessarily show up in your timeline, so you can get the first tweet to get that sort of synopsis, and maybe even the second, depending on how the algorithm determines to share with you a thread. the first or the second tweet in a thread, but not necessarily the entire thing. So threads are kind of nice on Twitter. But besides that, the brevity of Twitter is something that made it, in my mind, quite attractive. But again, I'm digressing significantly here. Twitter has remained more or less the same for years. It's about to change. Twitter's in the news. Let me cover this one thing, just to put it out there, because I think it's dumb. And I've been notified. I have these little blurbs that pop up on my phone. I don't remember what I've subscribed to somehow to make this happen. I get little news blurbs on my phone from all kinds of sources. I get freaking emails. I think I have Flipboard or something like that on my phone. I don't remember what it's called. It's crazy. And my phone would not leave me alone about the fact that Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, founder and CEO, whatever the heck he is. He's the founder and CEO of Twitter. He is selling his first ever tweet, and therefore also the first tweet ever made, for $2.5 million. It's up for auction, so it could change, because I think the auction closes late this month. I don't think $2.5 million is going to be beat, but then again, I also didn't think it was at like 100,000 when I was like, there's no way anyone's paying more than that, and now it's at $2.5 million, so there's that. And my phone would not leave me alone about the fact that Jack Dorsey's selling his first tweet for $2.5 million. Those were the headlines, and I just want to put that out there. He's selling it as an NFT, non-fungible token, and what that basically means is he turned his tweet into kind of like a one-off Bitcoin, right? It uses an NFT is a digital good that uses blockchain technology to basically guarantee that this digital good, again, it's digital, is unique and not copied or copyable. Now, how that comes to be and how that is possible is beyond me. That is beyond the scope of this podcast. But take it from me that it uses blockchain technology to guarantee that a digital good is a unique digital good. And so what Dorsey's doing is that he's selling his first ever tweet and using it as an NFT to guarantee that whoever buys it is the only person that owns this man's first tweet, which is so dumb. It's so dumb in so many ways. Like, what? So it's been compared to, like, the reason it's been brought to like $2.5 million. People have compared it to like a baseball card, you know, like, because people like say an NFT is kind of like having an authorized digital signature. So it's like, oh, it's like getting a baseball card signed. It is not like that. That is dumb. Because that's what people are trying to say. There's this website called Valuables, I think is what it's called, that sells tweets like collectibles. But the thing with collectibles is that collectibles have copies. They don't have unique, like Pokemon cards or something. Imagine like Pokemon cards or even baseball cards. No one makes just the one card. That's not a collectible. It is a piece of art or something. You can sell a unique piece of art. Right, you can sell a unique piece of art, and there are no copies of it. It's unique. You can make prints, right? I guess. I don't think you can do prints of NFTs. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is that it is not a collectible, but people are treating it like a collectible, and very rich people out there are throwing money at trying to buy this tweet for God knows why, because what can you do with it? All right, you say you own it. You can't show it to me. Like, you can't bring me into your house or whatever, and you go to your wall, and you're like, yes, this is my collection of tweets that I have accrued over billions of dollars spent in years of my life searching for the finest, dankest of tweets. You can't show me this. The tweet will remain on Jack Dorsey's timeline. If you can go to his history of his first ever tweet, if you can go that far back, it remains on his timeline. You don't get to put it on your timeline. You don't get to frame it. You get a digital certificate. Who cares? You can print a fake one of them. You can go online and buy a lordship. It's not real, but you can buy a lordship and slap the word Lord on your credit card. And that seems like a more intelligent investment to my mind than buying a $2.5 million tweet that you will never be able to do anything with and can't impress anyone with. Anyway, so everyone's freaking out about this $2.5 million tweet that Jack Dorsey's selling. Apparently, he's going to use the money that he makes on this, because he's a billionaire. What's $2.5 million to him? It's nothing. Apparently, he's going to like buy a bunch of Bitcoin with it, and he's going to fund some sort of project in Africa related to cryptocurrencies. At first, I thought it was a charity thing. I don't think it's a charity thing. It might be a charity thing. I don't know what he's doing with the money. Not everyone's reporting on it, and I didn't understand what was going on. The one article that I did read that was reporting what he was going to do with the money was kind of like an absurdly short article that I couldn't verify or trust. And I didn't do a ton of research into this. All right, I didn't do a ton of research into this. I'm not Mr. News. I've only got so much time in a day. I'm just giving you the synapses. The synapses. But yeah, that's in the news. Okay, that's out of the way. Jack Dorsey's selling a tweet. If you didn't think that was possible, apparently it's possible. Now you know. But bigger news on Twitter that no one's talking about. Everyone's talking about the selling of the tweet thing, but no one's talking about freaking Twitter is changing. I heard about this originally, and I don't like it. You may have heard about it. You may not have. Super follows are becoming a thing. And what's the other thing that they're calling it? There's these two major changes coming to Twitter, and I don't remember what they're calling it now. I have it. Where is it? Actually, did they call it anything? I don't think they've called it anything yet. Okay, no, maybe they haven't called it anything yet. So they announced at least two features. I think there may have been like some other talks about stuff. But the two big ones here is this thing called super follows, where it will be possible in the future for Twitter users to buy basically like a membership to a specific Twitterer to get additional features. So imagine it like a Patreon or a Twitch subscription or a YouTube membership, but instead it's Twitter. So like I can super follow, I don't know, Lady Gaga. I don't know why she's always the first celebrity that comes to my mind. I can super follow Lady Gaga if I give her $5 a month on Twitter, and then maybe she would offer people who super follow her additional secret private tweets or something like that, secret other stuff that other normal followers can't see. I made the joke about it on Twitter that, okay, great, fine, all right, so look forward to super following me if you want to see pictures of my feet or something like that. Everyone's made this joke already. I made it early on, but then it became like a hashtag or something. Like, it's basically Twitter trying to be an OnlyFans, right? Because we all know exactly how some Twitter users are going to use this. It's like the private Snapchat and private Instagram nonsense where people in the adult industry are just selling nudie pics behind in Snapchats and Instagrams, and you have to, you pay money outside of those because those apps don't natively support that, right? So it's like, oh yeah, Cash App me or Venmo me this money, and I'll like add you to a list and I'll send you nudie pics or whatever. I don't know how it works. All right, I don't even know if I even described it correctly. I don't use that, but I know it exists. Now Twitter's trying to get in on that, right? Twitter's trying to get in on that money. And of course, if you go into a boardroom, Twitter's not going to say, hey, look, we're trying to sell nudie pics on Twitter. We're trying to become a porn site. We're trying to become like a paid version of Tumblr before Tumblr wrecked itself, right? Twitter's not going to say that, but we all know that is going to be a significant portion of the revenue brought in from this new super follow thing. Twitter is trying to take the angle that it's going to allow creators and artists and that kind of thing a new revenue stream to be able to support their work through Twitter. Okay, yeah, that's a bunch of marketing speak for we just want a new way to make money, because any artist making art on Twitter already has other avenues for making money, and it's just off of Twitter. You do have Patreon, you do have websites like Coffee, you can just share your PayPal, not account, but like your, what do they call it? Send code or whatever. You can receive money over like PayPal or Cash App or Venmo. Like, there are options out there, right? There are options out there for an artist to make money. It just all happens to be off Twitter. Twitter's trying to put something built into Twitter for artists to use. And the thing is, I don't know what artists are gonna do. I mean, obviously, like, if you're an artist, you're probably gonna sign up for this because there's no reason not to. To my knowledge, we don't know what cut Twitter's gonna take from the subscription, so I think that's gonna be a huge part of it. So like, I think what does Patreon take? Like 30% or something like that? Maybe less. Actually, I think it's less. But let's just say Patreon takes 30% of the cut. So like, if you're supporting a creator on Patreon and you send them $10 a month, or whatever. Patreon would keep like $3 of it. The creator would get like $7. I actually don't remember if it is 30%, so don't hold me to that. If Patreon gods are listening and they're like, no, that's not it, you liar. This is LaBelle. It might not be 30%, but whatever the percent is, we don't know what Twitter's is going to be. They haven't announced that yet. So I think that's going to be a big thing. So say Twitter says, we're going to take 50%. Well, then, yeah, a creator isn't going to sign up for it, or at least going to be hesitant for it, because they would rather push you to their Patreon, because they're going to get a better cut on Patreon. But if Twitter can be competitive, or even better, then yeah, creators are going to say, okay, yeah, we'll sign up for super follows. But like, what content can you deliver over Twitter that an artist is going to be able to justify a super follow over? Because, again, who's going to pay for private tweets? This is going back to my view that tweets should be ephemeral. Tweets should be fleeting. Tweets shouldn't be, like, in themselves, this art thing that you hold on to forever. This is why I brought up the Jack Dorsey thing, selling his $2.5 million tweet that no one cares about, and didn't care about it until he said he was going to sell it, and then rich people with nothing else to do with their money decided that they would buy it. It's so stupid. It's just money laundering. For legal reasons, I'm not accusing anyone of laundering money, but that is something that people used to do, is launder their money by paying for art at extravagant rates and then shifting the money out into the ether, right? I'm not saying I know it's happening. All I'm saying is it makes no goddamn sense. It makes no goddamn sense for the rest of us average people. Anyway. Rich people with nothing better to do with their money than buy $2.5 million tweets. Same thing with super follows. How do you have $5 a month is what Twitter like proposed, like when they were like talking about this, they were like, oh yeah, the subscription would be like something like $4.99 a month or something. That figure could change, but say $5 a month. How can you justify, as an average person, I'm going to send this creator on Twitter $5 a month so that I can just receive tweets? Is that worth $5 a month to you? Is that freaking Disney Plus with hundreds, thousands? I don't know how many hours of content that you can watch all month long at your leisure is like, what, $8 a month? Disney Plus isn't even like $10 a month. Twitter's gonna be $5? I get the idea, like when it comes to like Patreon, Twitch subscriptions, YouTube memberships, all this stuff. I get that a huge part of the idea when a person signs up for that is that they want to support the creator. So it's not that you're necessarily expecting a return on the value. So if I send a creator that I enjoy $5-10 a month, I'm not necessarily expecting $5-10 of goods or services back to me. It's not really a purchase. I'm not really buying goods or services. I'm sending them money to support them, and they're giving me some token of thanks in the form of something, right? So it's a very typical thing. It's like if you value out, like, I don't know, say I'm like a photographer, right? And I have a Patreon, and if you send me $20 a month, I'll send you like Polaroid pictures of landscapes, selfies, whatever the freak, right? If I know I'm going to be spending like $5 in equipment and postage to send you that picture, I'm making that extra there's that $15, but like you're not if you're paying $20 a month to this photographer, you're not getting $20 a month in photos, right? That you're not paying for a good or service, you're paying to support the artist, and they're just returning the favor by giving you something kind of unique and special. So I get it. I get that it's not supposed to be one-to-one. You're not paying for a good or service. You're paying to support a creator. But how do you justify $5 a month per one person that you follow? And you might follow many creators. God knows if you wanted to super follow more than one person. How do you justify $5 a month for special tweets? Don't worry, we're getting to that. In case you thought I wouldn't also immediately answer my own question, don't you worry, Twitter is gonna have a solution for you, baby. I'm in a mood today. So the other feature I will say are groups. I don't know what they're going to call them, because I don't know if this is the same thing as the next topic or a different thing. Twitter is introducing this groups concept where now users will be able to create groups of people. It's kind of like lists, if you're familiar with Twitter lists, but no one uses lists and they're stupid, and no one uses them. No one uses lists. But groups, Facebook has some kind of group. I haven't used Facebook in years. Facebook has some kind of groups thing. Twitter is now trying to do that as well. So like, say you like, like, it could be as broad as like gaming, movies, but it could also be more specific. Like if you're a really big fan of, I don't know, the John Wick series, you could have a John Wick group where you talk about the John Wick movies, theorize like maybe about future movies and spin-offs. You could be like, this is the John Wick fan group. And you could have multiple people in that group, and you can have group messaging and contacts and stuff like that. You can belong to a group. Okay. They're introducing that concept. The super follow starts to make sense now. They haven't announced this as being something that will necessarily be possible immediately, but you can imagine like, oh, what if you have a paid membership? Like if you super follow me, I will add you to my exclusive group. Okay, so now you're starting to make a little bit more sense what they could be offering, right? Because the other things that Twitter said, like for the super follow, is that this could be bonus tweets, access to a community group. This is where the group thing comes in. Subscriptions to a newsletter, which who the frick wants to receive newsletters? A badge indicating your support. Who freaking cares about a tweet? Can you imagine just dozens of different badges floating around on Twitter? Anyway, so like badges, newsletters, this kind of thing, in case you want more spam in your email all the time. You can sign up for that. But yeah, the groups thing, it's like, okay, wait a minute, a private group, like an exclusive club. This is starting to make a little bit more sense. Next topic. This is my last Twitter topic of like big thing that they're announcing. Spaces. Twitter Spaces. If you haven't heard about this is Twitter's response to this app thing called Clubhouse, which I hadn't heard of, or maybe I'd kind of heard of one time, but it sounded stupid, so I didn't care about it, because it kind of is stupid, and I'll tell you why it's stupid. There might be potential here. I just haven't seen anyone do it right yet, and maybe Twitter will do it right, and it won't be stupid. But anyway, so this is Spaces, is Twitter's response to this app called Clubhouse. Clubhouse is an app on, I think it's exclusively on like iPhones, and it touts itself as a audio only social media, where the entire premise is that in the Clubhouse you can get into these voice chat groups with other people, and you can communicate with each other through voice, talk to each other, learn from each other, but it's all over voice. It's not text, it's not pictures, it's over voice. The big thing that's really, especially dumb about Clubhouse, but I get it, is that it is invite only. You can't just download this app and just be in Clubhouse. You have to know somebody in Clubhouse and get invited to use it. Basically, you can download Clubhouse, and I haven't done it because I don't have an iPhone. You can download Clubhouse, and it will try to connect you. Like if there's someone in your contacts that has Clubhouse, it'll be like, oh, hey, your friend so-and-so has Clubhouse. Ask them to invite you. So you can do that. If you're not invited to Clubhouse, you can still download it, and maybe if you do know someone, somehow Clubhouse will know that you know someone. It's super exclusive. And already, this is the hilarious thing. Clubhouse has had problems, apparently. I was reading about this. Apparently, Clubhouse has already had problems. It's invite only, and they already have trolls, and they already have abusers, and they already have bad actors on the platform disrupting discussions and stuff. And it's invite only! So it's like, so like even when it is exclusionary to the upteenth degree, they can't even keep out the frickin' harassment. And this is why, of course it's dumb. You can imagine people coming in to groups, if they're public, like if Twitter has a version of this Clubhouse that is public, you can imagine the bad actors that are gonna appear from this and just start screaming insanity at each other. It doesn't even have to necessarily be profanity, just insanity. We live in the era of misinformation, false news, and just conspiracy theories, and just absolute sheer stupidity. And the rapid rate at which we can spread stupidity on social media is already at an insane pace that like has never been seen before. Now we can just say it. We don't even have to type it. We can just say it to each other. We can just go into a chat room and scream at each other on Twitter with access to millions of people. Anyway, it sounds like a bad idea to me. But apparently they're going to be launching this as early as next month, as early as April. They're going to be launching this apparently to everybody as early as April. And it seems to me like you're going to be able to create rooms. The entire idea is that you create a space. Not to be confused with Create Space, which is like a different website. You're going to create a space on Twitter, and that's basically a room where you can invite people into it, or maybe it's public. I'm a little unclear on this because it's in beta test right now. Either you invite people in, or people can join your space, and you could have a voice conversation with other people. And it's interesting because they're talking about implementing a number of different features into a space, including like being able to tweet. So like a viewer, like there can be it's kind of like a live streaming platform. They haven't really pitched it that way, but it's kind of like a live streaming platform, kind of like Periscope. If you're familiar with Periscope, Twitter owns Periscope. It's a live streaming platform that streams to Twitter and its own app. And it has like a chat room or whatever. Like you can chat during a stream or whatever, like you would like on YouTube or Twitch or something, right? They're trying to introduce something like that for space as well, but they want it to be tweet-like, right? But they also don't want those tweets to interfere with like your actual timeline tweets. So it's going to be separate. And so there's going to be like a chat room. You're going to be able to have viewers. They want to introduce like maybe ways to include music if you want to have like introductory music to create like a show. It sounds kind of like, to me, it sounds like a podcasting or news or something like that where you can kind of like have a show on Twitter that just also happens to have the tools to allow people to communicate together over Twitter, right? So average users can use it as a place to just voice chat in a room, like something like Discord. Again, all this stuff exists outside Twitter. Twitter's trying to just put it in Twitter now. So like imagine getting into a voice group on a Discord server or something like that. That's what they're trying to do on Twitter. But Twitter's also trying to create a bunch of tools that also allows creators possibly to make it more show-like. And they mentioned a number of features, including being able to title these spaces, schedule them, support for co-hosting and moderation, guest lists. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They're trying to create. Again, they're pitching it like it's like a voice room for users, but really, it's going to be geared towards creators to be able to create shows on Twitter. And I think that this is kind of in response to the massive success of things like TikTok. TikTok doesn't offer something like this exactly, but it's something where not video sharing, because this is kind of beyond that. It's a merging of video sharing with streaming, where you're creating a streamed live show that people can view and interact with. And again, this all goes back to the super follow thing again, right? Somehow money is going to get involved here, where maybe in order to join a space or get access to a space, you're going to have to super follow. They're introducing this membership, this subscription service for like $5-ish or more or less a month to have access to these creators that will be creating Twitter exclusive content in a way that many to most artists don't do. Most artists don't create Twitter exclusive content. I'm not going to say all, I'm sure some do, but even if you do create art on Twitter, so whether you paint, draw, create music, whatever, chances are you don't just do it on Twitter. Chances are you share it to your Instagram, your SoundCloud, your YouTube, whatever. Twitter is trying to create a space where creators can create art exclusively for Twitter and support themselves on Twitter. And the more the more held to Twitter you are as a creator, the more money they can take from you in terms of those like subscriptions, selling ads, etc., as opposed to people fleeing off site to do those things. So this is a huge move. If you're investing into Twitter, if you're someone who's an investor in Twitter, you're probably excited for all of these new features, because with any luck on Twitter's end, what Twitter is hoping for is a whole slew of new revenue avenues, which is desperately needed by Twitter in terms of their growth being slower than they expected. That was a whole new story forever ago. I'm not going to discuss it, but they haven't been growing as quickly as they had liked. With the whole political shenanigans, the political shenanigans that the United States went through for the last 4 years of censorship on Twitter. Is it real? Is it not real? What do they censor? Who's allowed here? The fake news and whether or not you have to hold Twitter responsible for this, that. There's been a lot of shaky stuff, not just with Twitter, but with social media just in general, right? The responsibility social media has for sort of moderating their own content that they publish on their platform. I don't know if I'm using the right words here, but basically what I'm trying to say is I think Twitter is trying to get away from being Twitter. Twitter is like, okay, listen, we want to go beyond what we used to be. We want to represent a different type of content. We want to represent a different idea. We want to be held in a different regard than we were before, where people were coming to us for news or something like that. They want to not rely on just any old user to spread that news. They want to actually be the platform that hosts shows in a more professional manner. Because I think if Twitter, and I think Twitter knows this, if they can host the tools to make that possible, the creators that jump on it right away won't necessarily be the best at it yet, but in the long run, just like we saw with platforms like YouTube, right, where the content is getting more and more professional all the time because access to those tools is becoming easier and easier. If Twitter can provide the tools, the better the content on Twitter can become, and maybe they can combat some of the stigma that Twitter has earned over the last several years of being a cesspool of just absolute filth and fake news. I mean, if you've spent any time on Twitter, you know what I'm talking about the trolls, the harassment, the absolute stupidity that happens there. There are great things that can happen on Twitter. There are great connections you can make. There are great people there. But we all kind of know, if you spend a lot of time on Twitter, that it's kind of a cesspit. And I think that this is a weird way that Twitter is trying to combat that without actually introducing any better moderation tools. And that scares me. It scares me that they're trying to introduce better creative tools instead of better moderation tools. I'm hoping that they're creating creative tools not to the exclusion of moderation tools, because these new tools will need moderation, things like spaces, because it's a response to Clubhouse, and Clubhouse is already having problems with this. If Twitter can't do something to combat that, and Twitter is already much, much larger than Clubhouse, then Twitter's going to be in a lot of trouble. So these are changes that are coming to Twitter that I'm excited to see what happens from a sheerly hypothetical point of view. I'm curious to see where this goes. I'm also terrified that my Twitter that I have enjoyed for so long is probably never going to be the same, but also it's probably for the best. Anyway, that's been today's podcast. I'm keeping it very short today. I want to put the Hasty back into Hasty Podcast. You know what I mean? I want to be able to deliver you guys some quick information, whether it's in the form of news or just my life or things that interest me. Video games and movies and stuff are still definitely on the docket, but today was all about Twitter. Thank you also for listening to a Hasty Podcast. I've been Weston Hasty. If you would like to support me and my podcast, I have a Patreon. Speak of the devil. You can go to patreon.com/Weston Hasty. Support me there for as little as $1 a month. And there's not a lot that you get for it, but it is very supportive. Exclusive content coming there eventually. So maybe if you're not interested in dropping $1 a month there right now, just keep an eyeball on it. You can always follow, I think. Can you follow a page? Can you follow a Patreon page with? Maybe. Just keep an eyeball on it or go check it out. There might be something there by the time you see this. I don't know. Support me on patreon.com/Weston Hasty. If you would like to also support the show for free, make sure that you've followed me on whatever your favorite listening platform is, or subscribe to me on YouTube, and also share this podcast with your friends so that the channel / thing can grow and become more successful, and I can do more stuff like this and bring you more information and content. Thank you all so much for listening. If you need to know anything else about the projects that I do, I have a gaming channel over on YouTube. I have a Twitch channel where lately I have just been practicing learning languages on Duolingo, so come learn Spanish and German with me on Twitch. The YouTube channel is Magic Man Mo. You can go to youtube.com/Magic Man Mo. On Twitch, it's Magic Man Mo as well, twitch.tv/Magic Man Mo. If you want to learn about my other projects, they're all down in the descriptions of this podcast, wherever this may be. If you have any questions, hit me on Twitter @Weston Hasty. Use the hashtag Hasty Podcast to get my attention and leave me questions and comments that I might cover in a future episode of a Hasty Podcast. And with that, I think that wraps up this episode. Thank you all so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed it, please do all the things. Until next time, wash your hands and take care of yourselves. I'm out of here. Okay, bye.